So today I am super excited to be getting together with Natalie again. We've had many wonderful conversations and there's so many areas of expertise, but today we're going to be talking about moving out of perfectionism and how much that can open up for you. And so Natalie, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. This is very, very close to my heart. So when I saw you were going to talk about it, I was really excited because I was like, this topic is so good for dancers.
Yes, I wanted to jump right into it today and talk a little bit about how you first discovered your perfectionism, or if you were kind of always aware of it.
Mm. I was aware that I was controlling. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean perfectionism, although I found they quite often go together. So I was aware that I was someone who liked to be in control, who liked to have things my own way, who didn't know how to surrender to the world, to the universe. I didn't know how to relax my body. Like I was always in this kind of tense, controlling state. And that worked pretty well in the dance studio,
Yeah.
ironically. Um, didn't end up working out too well in my life. So I guess when I don't know exactly when I came across the concept of perfectionism, but when I started to learn more, I just kept on seeing like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's definitely me. Oh dear. Okay. So I have perfectionist tendencies. I can just see that now. And there were many manifestations of that in my life, like in my relationships, especially my romantic relationship, even in my dancing, in how I go about my life. And then also, as you well know, Elizabeth, these emotional things end up having physical consequences. So for me, part of my perfectionism actually ended up affecting my endometriosis. I think they were linked. And this like constant need to control and be perfect in my body. I couldn't be soft around my womb space. I couldn't just let there be room. I couldn't surrender to the fact that I had a monthly cycle. Like I resented it every time it came. So for me, all this stuff ends up being tied up into this need for absolute control because I didn't feel safe. So
Yeah.
I've gone pretty deep there quite quickly. Like
No,
there's a
that's
whole thing of like,
amazing.
details and that kind of thing. But really, for me, when I started to unpeel the layers of what this perfectionism was, and I wore it as a badge for a while, actually. I even remember going into a job interview when I lived in London. I was going to go into events. I didn't end up doing that. But saying, well, it's what they tell you to say, but also it was true for me. I was like, well, perfectionism is my weakness. Ha ha ha. Like as if it's a strength.
Yeah.
But really, it ends up being a downfall ultimately, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's so beautiful how you touched on the fact that, we can notice it in areas, but it is always affecting the whole. And I love how you brought in that body piece, because I think that a lot of times, especially for dancers, when they start to hear about mindset, there might be a part of them that pays attention, but the bigger part of them is like, yeah, well, I'll deal with that later. That's not as important as getting this physicality or this physical goal. And the truth, and what you just shone a light on there, is that you can't separate your mindset and your body. So whatever's happening is happening to all parts of you, and it can actually be detrimental in the long run.
Yeah.
So I wonder for you, was there like a specific memory that stands out when you were like, wow, this is really unhelpful and I want to work on it? Or was it more like layered?
Mm. I think the place where I found it easier to see things was in the dance studio, actually. And then later I came to look at my relationship and the other things. And as you said, they are all interlinked. You cannot be a perfectionist in the dance studio and not in your romantic relationship. Like that's just,
Yeah.
it's there
Yeah.
until you heal those things. So I actually remember in the dance studio at some point looking around, and there were people who were not perfectionists, who seemed to be enjoying class more, who were able to express more,
Mm.
who actually were the ones that people wanted to watch when they danced. And not because they had better technique. Some of them had just as good technique. Some of them had a little bit not as good technique. But
Mhm.
those are the people that called attention. Those are the people that really enjoyed it. And those are the people that I was like, honestly, jealous of. And I
Yeah.
felt like that's unfair. It's so unfair. I work so hard. Like, I'm so clean in my technique. I'm so this and that and whatever. And like, how is it that they give themselves permission to just make mistakes and try a triple pirouette on point and fall out of it? Like, I could never do that. Like, no, I need to know that I can do that.
Yeah.
So and these were the people, like I said, that were having a great time, that were being celebrated by their peers and by teachers. Maybe not, it depends on the teacher, okay? Because the teachers who are also perfectionists might not love that. It depends.
Right. Yeah,
But
it does.
certainly by audiences, and just having a great time. And so I think there was when I started to question, well, what I thought I thought perfectionism was serving me, and now I'm seeing the bigger picture. And while it's made me a drill sergeant in my technique, I'm not sure that that's actually where I need to continue to focus. And perhaps there's a way to continue to get better at technique without it coming from this fear of not being perfect, and instead
Yeah.
coming from a place of like, I love dancing. This is fun. What happens if I get to do ballet from that place? Plus,
Yes.
then I can experiment and play and all these other things. So I think it started there, if I'm honest, in the dance
I
studio
love
in some
that.
ways.
Yeah, that's huge. And like several of the questions that you just kind of gave me as your internal dialogue are so huge, right? I'm really into the what ifs right now. You know, what
Yeah.
if this could
So
happen, or
powerful.
perhaps, or just being able to be open to the possibility and entertain it even when you don't know the outcome. And so I wonder, what was like your first step towards moving away from that perfectionism?
The first step was definitely just giving myself permission.
Mm.
And part of that is you have to be prepared for your body's response to making a mistake, or your body's response to
Mm.
doing something silly. Like for me, I have, from things that have happened at school and things that have happened over the course of my life, I have a really visceral reaction to looking
Yeah.
silly. Some
Yeah.
people love it. It's actually some people's strength.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I just want to disappear into the ground if I make a mistake or I look silly,
Mhm.
or lo and behold, stupid, or like I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, it was like, I'm going to give myself permission to, if I fall out of a pirouette, not get angry. Because this is the other thing,
Mm.
like it comes down to emotions at the end of the day as well. So, when I would get angry that I felt a pirouette, the next pirouette that I tried to do was even less likely to work, because now
Yeah.
I'm all like
Mhm.
raged up. So, it was both a decision, like you said, it's the mindset and the embodiment. So it was the mindset decision of, I'm just going to give myself permission on small things today to
Yeah.
let it slide, to let it go, to learn from it. Like, I'm not going to ignore it, but that's,
Right.
even me saying that, I'm like, I don't even need to tell perfectionists that. They
Yeah.
all know they're going to learn from it anyway. So that's not, if I was speaking to other
Right.
people who are sloppy and lazy and
Yeah.
messy, maybe I would say something different. But for perfectionists, we're going to learn from it. So it was also just to be prepared that my body was going to have a reaction to it, and that didn't
Mhm.
mean that it was wrong. It
Right.
just meant that that's my pattern. My pattern is to shame myself for
Mm.
making a mistake or getting something wrong, or to feel embarrassed, or for my face to go red, or in my case, I often had a reaction of anger. Some people might have a reaction of shutdown. It depends. People have different
Yeah.
reactions to making a mistake, but that was a real kind of important step one. Give myself permission. Step two, sit with the uncomfortable sensation in my body without judging it or making it truth.
Mhm.
And then I feel like step three, and this came much later, but it's an
Mhm.
important step that I realized, I didn't used to talk about it when I talked about perfectionism, but as you get good at this and as you start giving yourself permission to do these things, you will notice that the people in your life are still expecting the same high standard and high behavior of you
Mhm.
once you started to give yourself permission to be
Yeah.
human, basically.
Mhm.
And it's really difficult, because even people who are not perfectionists, like I noticed this with my husband, he is the opposite of a perfectionist in some ways. And yet he still wanted that, you know, me to
Mm-hmm.
punish myself for getting things wrong, me to not forgive myself for getting things wrong, me to like hold myself to an impossible standard.
Right.
And so the step 3 after those 2 difficult steps within myself was communicating to other people, I've already forgiven myself for this.
Mm-hmm.
I understand if you need more time, but I'm not going to torture myself for making a mistake or for getting something wrong.
Yeah.
And so that was another important step that I didn't used to kind of think about as a concept, but I realize now it's important, because otherwise other people will suck you back. Even if you've done really good work in like
Yeah.
internally, other people can suck you back into the shame and embarrassment of getting something wrong. And if you're a perfectionist, that's very likely because you've grown up around perfectionists, or you have friends who are perfectionists, or you're in a world like the ballet world where people
Mm-hmm.
will shame you.
Right.
And you have to be able to detach from what they're thinking about you and how they want you to be like, I'm me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's
I get
hard.
the final call on
Yeah.
what I choose to believe about myself. That's
Yeah.
huge. So I just want to recap, because those were really 3 amazing steps. That first one, that permission piece. I think when I discovered that, of course, it's something I'm continually working on. But when I discovered that permission piece, that was like the final key for me transforming my social anxiety into being able to be comfortable. Like, it wasn't a fake it till you make it thing. It was finally like being
Yeah.
able to like just show up as I am with my family and friends, because I give myself permission. If nobody else likes me, I have my own back. But it all started with permission. And so I think that's really huge, like you're saying, of those small steps. It's not often that you're just going to be able to be like, I give myself permission to make all the mistakes and be exactly who I am. And it's just there because, like you're saying, you've built these patterns. Your nervous system has responses that feel very real because the nervous system has been patterned to constantly be asking, am I safe? And so it's like that continual signaling, then that second step of feeling the uncomfortable feelings and being with that, I think is that piece of when you are activated, when one of your patterns is activated, like you said, anger or embarrassment, you have to take the time to signal to your nervous system that you're safe. It's okay. We're going to make it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that
Absolutely.
final piece is so huge, because there is so much, I think, of perfectionism that is rooted in finding our safety and our value from the outside in. And so if other people are reflecting back to you disappointment or, guilt or anything like that, that's more than likely where most of our perfectionistic tendencies began. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you've created some of those boundaries for yourself, or how you check back into you.
Yeah. Can I add one thing first?
Yes, please.
So I love what you just said there about like that this is something that we've kind of picked up along the way. And that's really important to understand. If you're sitting here right now, you are not a perfectionist. You're a
Mm,
person with perfectionist tendencies. You weren't born with this. Okay. This
right.
is something that we've learned, and it's fine because it was a coping mechanism, but you don't need it anymore. You can put it down, or at least
Yeah.
slowly little pieces of it.
Mhm.
And just one other practical thing that I'll say for the permission thing, if you're
Yes.
like, well, I don't know what I need to give myself permission with, um, one thing that I invite people to do is look at where you're judging other people.
Oh, yes.
Just just have a little listen to, because I listen, guys, it's such a common thing, and
Mhm.
especially amongst women.
Mhm.
And there's no, I'm not shaming anyone. I used to do it like non-stop on Instagram. It was ridiculous. And then also in the dance studio, and then also on the street. Like it was outrageous the amount of time I spent judging other people.
Mhm.
And what I realized is like that's because I wasn't giving myself permission for the things that they do.
Yeah.
And you'll realize, and you might think to yourself, no, it's not that I don't give myself permission, it's that they're wrong. But if you really are like, well, they're just wrong, you could feel neutral about that, and you could be like, they're kind of wrong, and so the consequences will naturally unfold. I don't
Mhm.
need to be judging them,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
totally.
So just that's one place to start. I feel like, well, I don't know what I need to give myself permission for. That girl that you're like, oh, she didn't even have good technique yet, and she's out there with a smile on her face thinking she's the best. There it is. That's the permission you need to give yourself to dance with a smile, for example.
Ooh,
Okay.
that one you're gonna have to sit with, because that is really hard to admit.
So
I
hard.
think, especially when you're so self-critical, to really look at the judgment that you have for others is really hard, because you're like, well, no, I'm the hardest on myself, and you are. But it's so true. I just have to share a memory really quick.
Please.
Yeah, when in early years of marriage, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years in, and someone was coming to our house, and I was doing my manic cleaning, freaking out about all the things they're going to judge me on. And my husband said this often, but it wasn't until this moment where he was like, they're not even going to care. They're not thinking that. They're not thinking about you at all. And he would say that all the time for ballet complaints I made, my outfit complaints. He would always say that. But in my head, I would always be like, yeah, they are. And it was in that moment that I was like, I know they are, because I do. I judge other
Yes.
people.
That's
And then,
the
but it was
the
like
difficult
the
truth to
big
admit.
moment where I was like, oh, no, I know that some people judge you because I judge people.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I was going to ask you, which we can loop back to, was about how have you noticed that as you've done this work, kind of it's the away from perfectionism, but I also think of it as like anti-shaming. As you've done this
Mm-hmm.
unshaming work, how have you noticed it change for you in judging other people? Because that's been a huge thing for me.
I live day to day in a way that I didn't know was possible.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea. It's actually making me emotional. I had no idea how light and
Mm,
happy and open my life could be. And it's like, I see every person now, and especially every other woman, as like a potential ally, a
mm,
potential friend, a potential collaborator. And that I always have this thing when I am like trying to explain coaching to people, because I'm like, your life might not look that different from the outside, right? But you're going to feel different in every moment that you are alive.
oh my
And this
goodness.
is one of those places for
Hmm.
me. Judgment was a really, really big one for me. So
Yeah.
it's this lightness, it's this openness, and that has had wonderful effects on relationships. And I want to just make one thing really clear, because people might be like, oh no, I have really good friends, and that I had really good friends as well, but it was like, you're either in or you're out. Watch out
Mm,
for that one, because I'm an excellent friend. I've always been a really good friend. And I think lots of people in the dance world are, because we have this. I don't know, there's something about that connection to your body, like moving with other people, all these things, it can form really strong bonds. But watch out for the like, you're in and those people are out. That's
mm,
that's the thing. So
yeah.
that just completely liberates you on
Yeah.
that level. And so you just are open to all these new possibilities. And then on top of that, you also just gain this freedom. When you're not worried about being perfect, you gain this freedom to do what you want to do. Like,
Oh
it's
my
as simple
goodness.
as that. You
It
get to do
is.
what
It's
you want to do.
so wild. It's so wild. It's so simple, and yet it's so like huge, right? I always try, just like you're saying, I think there's something that comes from this work and being coached and doing the unshaming work and leaning into just the wild messiness of life that is not able to be contained by words, because it's just a
Yeah.
embodied like, oh, like it's a remembering, this is who
Yeah.
this is who we are.
Yeah. And that stays with you even through the ups and downs of like the emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
There's that deep, like, inner peace. And that sounds really, I know
I
it
know.
sounds a bit weird, and it sounds a bit weird, but, and like you said, words don't really do it justice, but it's that deep knowing that, like, I'm not wrong. I'm going to be okay. I'm for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that no one can, once you have that, no one can take it away. It's
Yeah.
so powerful.
Yeah, every part of life opens up because, like you were
Yeah.
saying, it's that freedom.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry, I came away from your boundaries question, but yeah, I it's such a good point. What's the real practical ways of creating boundaries? I had to, so first of all, I had to tell people, hey, I've been hard on myself, and the people that I care about, I told them, like, if you see any chance of just like encouragement or to not shame and blame me when I've done that to myself. It depends. You need to figure out who these people are that you can have those conversations with. Don't bang a head against the wall with people who aren't ready to support you through that. It's fine. You can still have people in your life that don't get it. That's another thing. You know, keep
Yeah.
the people who love you around. They don't all have to be on this journey with you. You can totally do this on your own path. And I would suggest find support from other people. But it's weird because in some ways I needed other people to help me with the boundaries. And that's another thing that's hard for dancers, because we want to be able to do everything ourselves. And we think the only person I have in this world is myself, my body. I have to push myself. I have to make things happen. I'm super independent. And there's beautiful sides to that. But there's this shadow, which is like, everything in the whole world is my responsibility. It's not. You are your responsibility, and other people are their own responsibility. And so you can also ask for help on this journey, and talk to people about it, especially other dancers, because more than likely they're going to get it. They're going to get it too. And then you show up and you help each other. Yeah, I don't really think that's exactly a boundary, Elizabeth, but that's what came out.
No, that's perfect. And actually, I was like, I feel like we could have a whole nother conversation about boundaries. So maybe we should make that another one, and we'll get more practical with boundaries. But no, I think there's so many things to say on that. But the one piece that I want to talk about right now would be, you know, in that control element, because I find that with a lot of my dancer clients, this need to be in control, this desire to be in control, and the thought that if I'm in control, everything will be all right. Because if I'm in control, I'll have something stable because I know the right answer. I know what to do. Right.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you could just maybe speak to how to lean into the control that you have over your experience while surrendering to the reality that we don't have control over so many things. And I know that's a huge question, but
yeah, there's something that has come into my head, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate it, but it's a paradox, because when you're controlling everything and you have this idea that by controlling everything, I'm safe, and you think you trust yourself, it's actually the opposite of that. By needing to control, it shows that you don't trust yourself in a state of surrender and relaxation. That's actually what it's showing, that you don't trust yourself when you breathe out. The only way you trust yourself is when you're in this state. And so for me, that was really hard to see. It was really hard to accept that, because I was like, no, like you said, I must be able to find the right answer. Perfectionism can lead you down some really dark places as well, in terms of it can lead you into collective perfectionism, which is probably another whole video also. But collective perfectionism, where everyone thinks that they have the one answer and everyone else is wrong, and therefore it's again the us versus them thing. Whenever you're in separation, you're doing damage to your own like soul in a way. So yeah, being able to be whole and control. Yeah, it's what you said. Control. Part of control is being able to trust yourself and your body when you're not trying to manipulate everything.
Yeah.
That's really control, right? Emotional control.
I know. And it is so interesting, right? Because say I'm working with a client and they're saying that the way they want to feel is in control. The word control now for me always has a little bit of a negative tinge for me. But I don't want to put that on my clients. So I'm trying to help them find what it is that they feel like they'll get from that control. And I feel like for most dancers, like what you're saying, it is that safety. So I would almost venture to say that we need to come back to that piece, that embodied nervous system regulation. Right. I feel like more and more, because I think we've been on a little bit of a parallel journey where it's like mindset, which is amazing. And mindset's huge, and it'll transform your life. And then the realization that there's so much of that somatic work, and there's so much of that that safety. I mean, because you can be driving and positive and pushing, but if your body is in a state of dysregulation, there's that disconnect. And so I would love to hear, maybe if you have like your favorite somatic technique or nervous system tool that you utilize that you would like to share.
Yeah. Shall we just do it?
Oh,
it's
yes.
like a minute long.
Please.
Okay. It's a body scan. It's super simple. And you can do this literally like before you go to sleep. You can even do it while you're brushing your teeth. It's a little bit more difficult to do the relaxation part, but you can still do it.
Okay.
So let's do it. It's just going to take 60 seconds. If you're listening, if you're watching us, then if you're in a safe place, you can close your eyes. And we're just going to pay attention to the forehead first and just relax the muscles there. And then the top of the head and the face. And then if you can, even relaxing the tongue, let the tongue be soft. And then the neck softening down. You can also just be slowing down your natural breath rhythm if you want to. And on the next out breath, we drop the shoulders. And then keeping the back long, but just softening the back muscles, softening the chest, and then allowing the belly to be round and soft, something that we don't let ourselves do in the dance studio, and that's fine. But when you leave the dance studio and you go to your home and you're in a safe place, allow yourself to be soft and round, and then allowing the pelvis to be supported by whatever you're sitting on, arms and legs heavy. And that is just a simple way to come into the body. And then from there, you can ask any questions that you want to. Why is it that I feel I need to control? Why do I not feel deserving of something if I simply surrender to it? Why do I believe that it's not coming to me? Why do I believe I have to be constantly bringing things in through my own hard work and sweat? Why can I not surrender to the idea that I might already be lovable as who I am, etc., etc.? And you can ask any questions from that place. So we can come back now when you're ready. Just open your eyes. And so it's simple, it's quick. You can do this much slower if you want a deeper relaxation. I like to, I also don't always do it myself. Sometimes I listen to one that's like a 15-minute one. I just put it on. I'm not super advanced in this, guys. And I think this is so important. For perfectionists, don't make this something that you have to do perfectly. You can do it once a week for 1 minute.
Yeah.
You could do it every day for 1 minute. You could do it once a month, 30-minute one where you're like, I'm doing it today. It's the first day of each month. I'm going to sit down, do it. It doesn't have to be in any way, shape or form something that you commit to in a perfect way. And it can even be as simple as in the morning when you get out of bed and you step down, you feel the floor underneath your feet. Anything that just brings you back into your body, and that's the truth of who you are. And I know it can be confronting because we think that our bodies have to be a certain way for us to be safe, but they don't. Our bodies are what they are. We're safe in them. Like our bodies literally every minute of every day are trying to keep us safe and healthy.
Yeah.
Now we give them the right environment, they can do that. But if we're constantly controlling, tensing, forcing, our bodies don't appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and I think just like what you were saying, it's that expanding your range, right? And so you can't expect to go from a super contracted, always held place to so you come out and then you come back in. But the next time you go out, it'll be easier to get the last place, and maybe you get a little lighter and then you come back in. And so I would really encourage everyone listening to just like Natalie said, start to program this in. You could almost make it a game of like where you can start to tune into your body. And you will be amazed as you begin to plug this into your life. Just like some of the questions that Natalie was saying, if you take that 60-second break, if you take that tiny moment to breathe and tune in, you can access that deep wisdom that's inside of you. And it hits different. It's one of those things that you just, again, you got to experience it. It just hits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
That was so beautiful. Okay. So we could continue to talk forever, but I want to wrap this up today with one last question. A theme in my life has been leaning into relaxing and enjoying right now. instead of
Mm.
always putting that relaxation on the other side of a goal, right? And so I just
Yeah.
want to ask you, what is something that you are really enjoying right now?
I am in full Christmas mode,
I love it.
and I don't always love it, and sometimes I've realized in the past I've kind of forced it, but this year I'm just like, my life is not perfect. That's like, first of all, very important. And I love that you said, Elizabeth, like, okay, just in each moment, how can I enjoy it? There's a lot of things. I've just transitioned my whole business. Things are a bit up in the air at the moment. And I could absolutely be like, oh, I don't deserve to get in the Christmas spirit yet because there's still lots to do. There's always that thing of like, not yet,
Yep.
not yet, not yet. No. But then I was just like, we put our Christmas tree up on the first Sunday of Advent, which was even in November, which is
Yeah.
earlier than I'd usually let myself. So it's like, no, it has to be December. No, 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 no. And I was like, no, I'm going to put the Christmas tree up. I'm going to put Christmas music on. I've listened to Nutcracker I don't know how many times already. And I'm just allowing myself to just be there, just go into it, cuddle with the cats, with the blanket. I'm just embracing winter, which is something that I didn't used to do because I love summer. I was going to say I'm a summer person and I stopped myself because that's not true. I exist in all seasons.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. So
I love
that's
that so
something
much.
that I'm just trying to enjoy in each moment. Okay, just feeling into it. I'm hosting a dinner party for some friends and just bringing people, the important stuff. The important stuff.
Yeah.
Like, my business is also important and I love it, but being in the moment, enjoying, like, putting music on when I'm emptying the dishwasher, like these small things.
I love it. I can feel like the cats and the dinner party and the music. I've been putting music on all of the time lately as well. So thank you so much for being here,
My
Natalie,
pleasure.
and sharing these tools and practical tips. We're going to have to do another one, obviously.
Yes,
Um,
I would love to.
but I would love for you to share just a little bit from anyone who maybe is just hearing about you or sparked something inside listening to you, how they can get in contact with you and what's the best way to get in
Yeah.
contact with
Sure. Instagram is my favorite way. I'm also on YouTube, but it's nice to be in DMs, I feel like, because I can
you.
voice note people. It's fun. So my Instagram is Natalie Dancer. Although if you search for my name, which is Natalie Orr, ORR, you'll find me too. Yeah, and anyone who's interested in coaching in any way with topics around perfectionism, I really work mainly with dance teachers, but I
Okay.
also, especially with mentoring, but with coaching, I work with also people who dance, mainly adult ballet dancers, so not
Yeah.
professionals, but
Yeah.
people who dance for, I was going to say for fun, but take it seriously also, but
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
professionals. And it's just such a wonderful group of people to work with, both teachers and dancers. I mean, dancers in general. Why? Because, I mean, this with, as soon as you start working with people who are dancers, they apply stuff. Like, they're not afraid to take action.
Yeah.
And that's really what makes the difference. So it's my great honor to get to do
Yes.
that. And it's
Yeah.
so fun. So yeah, come say hi if you
Wonderful.
want to.
Okay, definitely. I will put all of that on the YouTube description below. Again, thank
Thank
you
you,
so
lovely.
much for being here.